Hi and welcome back to another episode of jPlay. I'm Marcus and today I want to show you some rounds of Relic Runners, a game where Indiana Jones meets Days of Wonder. Or how would you explain this Crystal Skull miniature? Or this guy? There's also Kate Blanchett aka Irina Spalko lookalike, but that's about it for indie similarities. In Relic Runners, the players can score victory points by exploring ruins, temples or making treasure hunts, and of course, whoever has the most victory points by the end of the game will be the most famous adventurer. And typical for a Days of Wonder production, the victory points are a hidden information and may remind you a little bit of the coins in Small World. Also typical for Days of Wonder, the production quality is just awesome. Just look at the treasures or the thick cardboard pieces. As you can see, this is the German version of the game, but really this shouldn't be a problem. And for you it might be a learning exercise, so now you know that Wegstück means pathway. Again, I will just show you some turns in this game and explain some special situations if those don't occur during my walkthrough. I already set up the game for a 3 to 5 player game. As in a 2-player game you would use fewer of the temple tiles, the rest is about the same. The game ends once 8 treasures are collected, at least in a 3-player game. This value varies according to the numbers of players, as you can see here. Let's get started. So I prepared all these ruin tiles. Again, in a 2-player game you would only use 2 of these ruin tiles of each of the spaces for these ruins. I prepared the toolbox tokens close to the river pathways and set up the 12 different temples randomly on the game board. One thing that I still have to do is to reveal the top level of each of the violet temples, so all the players know what to expect from these violet temples. And the setup I chose follows the recommendation from the rulebook for a beginner game. Basically, there is a possibility to set this game board up completely random, so for example all the blue temples in one quadrant and whatnot, but again this is the basic setup that comes with the rulebook. Each player grabs himself an explorer chart here. For now we will ignore the special abilities for each of these explorers. Each player starts the game with 1 toolbox ready to start at the toolbox progression table, and each of the players starts the game with 3 of these ration packs here. Okay, each player starts at the base camp here at the center of the game board, and you will determine the first player by any means you would like. I think the rules refer to the last one who visited some kind of a temple or relic or whatever is about to start, but I think I will prefer some more random mechanics. Let's just consider Blue will be the starting player. Blue can or has to do 2 steps now during his turn. The first thing to do is mandatory, and this is to move. So each player has to move at least 1 space away. He's not allowed to end his movement on the same space that he started his movement. He's also not allowed to use the same pathway more than once during his turn. It's possible that he might come through a space in his turn several times. That is allowed. So for example, when he would move this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, and back there, and then maybe ending down there, this is allowed, but again, he's not allowed to end his movement on the same space where he started this phase. During your move, you are allowed to move through 1 unfamiliar terrain at maximum, but you are allowed to use any number of familiar pathways, basically belonging to your player color. Of course, still following the rule that you are not allowed to move through a pathway more than 1 time during your movement phase. You are also allowed to start or end your movement with an unfamiliar terrain, but never in between. So this movement would be not allowed, whereas if the blue player would be starting here, he could use this first pathway, the second pathway, and end his movement with an unfamiliar terrain. You ask how to place pathway? Well, that's a pretty good question, and I will show you that during the very first turn of the blue player. He will now do his mandatory movement. Again, you can start your movement on an unknown trail. Right now all the trails leaving the base camp are unknown to the players, so blue might decide to move along this unknown trail here and will land on this ruin field here. Then we come to the second phase of your game turn, and this would be the exploration phase. The exploration is always optional, so players can now decide to spend one of their ration packs, which they will put back to the base camp, and then they are allowed to explore their current location. In this case, the current location is a ruin field, so we will just remove one of these ruin tokens here, so these get depleted, and as soon as this is depleted, something else will happen, so this will just go back to the box. And by exploring a ruin, a player is now allowed to place one pathway. There is an additional rule to that, as when exploring the ruins you have to place your pathway on a trail that is adjacent to the current location. So in this case, the blue player could decide to place his pathway on this water trail here, and really it doesn't matter if this is a water trail or a solid trail. For the bear movement this really doesn't make a difference. The only difference that these water trails have is they have these toolbox tokens, which are explained in the next turn. After the optional exploration, the game route is done. Still, all the players could decide to use a toolbox, but normally when you start the game you don't have any toolbox placed on the progression table here, so that's basically it for the blue player in this turn. Then we come to the next player, maybe saying the yellow player would be next. He has also to move away from this current position, so he might think of moving onto this ruin here. He will also spend one ration pack to explore this ruin, so this first token will be removed from the game, and then he would be allowed to place a pathway of his color. One thing to mention is a pathway can hold different player colors. So for example, in a later turn, if the blue player would also want to place a pathway on this trail, this would be allowed. They would just be next to the existing pathway without any problems. That was the turn of the yellow player. You already see the game can be pretty fast, so we come to the green player. Green will move down to this ruin here. We'll also spend one ration pack and is allowed to place a pathway to an adjacent trail, maybe leading to the violet temple here, because he already knows what is waiting here. As I explained, the top level of all the violet temples will be revealed during the setup. Then it's again the turn of the blue player. Blue will move to this space here, so onto the ivory temple. Now he has passed one of these toolbox tokens here. He has to flip it, so this is now depleted, and you already see that. It says me first here, and I believe there are different messages in all of these depleted boxes here. So there will be some time in the game when these get filled up, but right now this has already been used. And now the blue player has to move one of his toolbox miniatures one space up. Right now he can still decide on which row he will place his one and only toolbox for now, so he could put it here, here, here or here, with all having a different effect. For example, if I would place it here, I could decide to place a new toolbox miniature on this field here, so to get more possibilities throughout the game, or I could gain directly to victory points. But I think for the very first toolbox, I think it's definitely wise to put this toolbox here. Now, as I have moved, I have not yet explored, I could immediately use this toolbox here, and I think I will do that. So I will spend this toolbox, so I will put it back here to place a new toolbox from my reserve. I have 3 toolbox available, but right now they don't do me any good because they are below my progression table here. But again, that's definitely a good starting point for later upgrades of my progression table. Then I can decide if I want to explore the temple, and I think I will do that. So again, I will spend one ration pack, I will put it back to the base camp, and then I will reveal the top tile for this temple here. This is an ivory temple, so I'm allowed to take this tile with me, but it has to be mentioned that I can only hold one tile for the ivory temple per level. So I could not go to another temple and take the top level tile from the ivory temple here as well. I could spend it then, gaining 2 victory points, but for now it's safe. I could have different levels of ivory temple, so I could also have the second tile, for example, or the second level and the base level here as well, but I'm not allowed to have 2 of a kind in my inventory. So now I can check the special ability from this tile here. This is something that stays with me, so that's definitely good. So every time I return to base camp, I get 1 ration pack more than normal. Normally, you gain 3 ration packs when ending your movement at base camp, but with this tile I will now always get 4 ration packs, which is absolutely awesome. But I think I already mentioned is you have a maximum capacity for this ration packs, and that's maximum of 5. Then we come to the yellow player. I think yellow will also go to this ivory temple down there. He also passed this toolbox token, which he has to flip. Here it says no more, as you can see. So he has to move his toolbox as well, and I think he will go into this row here and place it on this space, which says you are allowed to use the temple function of the current location for free, so you don't have to give up any of your ration, which is great, of course. And as he currently is at a temple location, he will directly spend this toolbox to use the function of the current position for free. So he's allowed to explore the temple. So he will flip the top tile. Again, this is something that he's allowed to keep, so we take it. So let's move this tile close to the player board. And this tile says whenever another player is about to move one of his pathways, this player gets 1 ration pack for free. Of course, you still have to consider your maximum capacity for ration packs, which is still 5. Green will move to this purple temple. Again, we have crossed one of these toolbox icons. Let's see what's written on this one. This says F Christ prop. Awesome. So we will more or less keep it empty. So again, there is a possibility that this might be refilled. We have to move our toolbox, and I think I will go to this pathway here, but I'm not thinking of using this right now, so I'm really aiming for this space up there, because this would allow me to place an additional pathway, which can be pretty nice. Still, he will spend 1 of his ration packs to explore this temple here. We already know what's waiting for us. So with this tile here, which gets discarded immediately, he's allowed to get 1 additional toolbox, which he can upgrade in a later turn. The top level of violet temples will be revealed every time when they are not revealed, so we can show what's beneath this one, so all the other players, including himself, know whenever we are about to explore here, we are allowed to move our toolbox 1 space upwards. As blue is getting quite short on resources, I think he's thinking of moving back to the base camp. He also has the special ability from his ivory temple tile, so I think that's definitely a good idea from him. One thing to mention, whenever you come to this space, you have to end your movement on the base camp, so there is no way of moving through base camp here. So again, we have to move, so we will start our movement on an known pathway, so of his color basically. We are allowed to move 1 unknown trail. This is at the end of our movement, so this is definitely legal. And then we have to take 4 of these ration packs, 3 for the normal and 1 for the temple tile, which we will place on our player board. And now we have reached our maximum capacity. The base camp is the only space on the game board where you don't have to spend any ration pack in order to explore it. Of course, this would make any sense, so this ends the movement of the blue player. Yellow player will move to the ruins on this side here. course, this time he has to spend a ration pack in order to explore the ruins, so they will be discarded. And I think I will put a pathway on this space here. Again, I have a plan for the next relic run, I think that's called in English, not sure, or for the treasure hunt. This is something I will show you hopefully in a later stage of the game. Green will move 1-2 spaces here, and I just noticed I forgot to reveal this temple here. So he will spend one of his ration packs, so we send it back to the base camp to explore this purple temple, but this purple temple gives you 2 ration packs back basically. So this gets discarded. We will reveal the next one. This is good. This allows you to move one of your pathways, and we place these 2 ration packs on the player board of the green player. Blue will move to this ruin. He will spend one of his ration pack to explore this ruin, though this is already the last ruin, at least on this side here, and this will allow him to place one of his pathways, and he will place this pathway along this river here, also having a plan, of course. Okay, I think yellow will move to this blue temple here. He will spend his last ration to explore this temple. Blue are always victory points, basically, and these are 2 victory points that he is allowed to take. So we'll take this one and we'll place it next to his player board, but he will do that in a hidden fashion, so none of the other players know what victory points he currently has. Green will move to this ivory temple here, so again we have to flip 1 toolbox token, which says too late. Isn't that nice? And again he has to move one of his toolbox 1 step up, so he will do that for this toolbox here, so which brings him to this level. So anytime throughout the game when it is his turn, he can place a pathway adjacent to his current location. He still has to pay 1 ration pack in order to explore this ivory temple here, and this says that he gets 1 victory point if he explores a ruin or a temple on the very first level, on the top level. So this definitely can be pretty nice. As blue has still more than enough ration packs, I think he will move here to this ivory temple. He will pay 1 of his ration packs in order to explore this one here, so he's now allowed to take the next level for this ivory temple. And all the level 2 ivory tiles are 1-use action tiles, and this would allow him to push his ration packs to the maximum when he discards this tile. As yellow is out of supplies, he will move back to base camp and therefore get 3 of these ration packs. And green will move to the ruins here. He will spend his last ration pack in order to explore this ruin. The good thing about exploring this for once, he can place a pathway, of course. And additionally, because he was the first one to explore this ruin here, he gets 1 victory point because of this ivory tile here, of course. Again, this is a hidden information. Okay, blue will move back to this ruin here. Again, he will also spend 1 of his ration here to explore the last of the ruin tile. First of all, we will of course place a new pathway, and he will place it adjacent or in the direction of the blue temple on the left side here. And the next thing has happened, because this is the last ruin tile on this side here. We have found the shrine and its hidden relic, and on the ruin tiles this is the toad with the emerald in its mouth. Now we are coming closer to a possible relic expedition. So if we would manage to explore these 2 ruins here as well, then the next toad would show up, and then the player who would start his movement on a relic of the same color, of course, and end his movement of the same color, then he would be allowed for once to take the relic from the target location and score the appropriate amount of victory points by the end of the game. And this is definitely something that you have to achieve in order to win it. Yellow is freshly equipped, so he will move towards this ivory temple. Remember, the first level always gives you some ongoing effects, so he will spend definitely one of the supply tokens here and will discover this tile there, and this says, or this brings you 1 victory points as soon as this player places one pathway on the game board, and this is of course excellent, especially at the relative beginning of the game. Green is out of supply, so he will move 1-2 spaces to base camp. He will grab himself 3 resources. And then we come directly back to the blue player. I think blue will move 1-2 spaces here to this ruin. He will also spend one of his ration pack in order to explore this ruin. This would allow him to place one tile as well. And I'm thinking of placing this pathway here on this line, and I think yellow will move towards this purple temple here. We will also spend one of his ration packs in order to explore it, so he is now allowed to remove one of its pathways that's already on the game board to another location, and I'm really thinking of placing it here because this would allow him a relic exposition in a later stage of the game, basically down here to all up in the north where the other ivory temple currently is. One last thing to do is to reveal the last level of this purple temple here, and this would just give you one additional toolbox. Of course, this is always nice to have. I think green will move to this ruins here, so he will pay one of his ration packs back to the bank in order to place one of his pathways. So for now that should be good. And in order to show you a relic expedition, the blue player will do something very stupid now. So he will move 1-2 spaces to this field. He will place, he will pay one of his ration packs in order to reveal the last tile here. Again, he has to place one of his pathways, and I think I will just place this pathway along this trail there. And the last thing to do is to place the relic on the spot accordingly. Why is that stupid? Of course, I will show you that when it's the turn of the green player. For his movement, yellow will move to this ivory temple. He will pay his ration pack, and let's see what one-time effect we get here. And this one is a pretty cool one, as this allows you to secretly look through the deck of the temple right now and choose the tile instead of just taking the tile that's on the top of the temple. That's really an awesome one-time effect. And the very last thing that I want to show you is the relic expedition. That was the reason why I made a stupid decision for the blue player. Green will now start his movement on a space with a relic basically. He will move 1-2 spaces to another space of the same relic. Now he made a relic expedition. For once he's allowed to grab this piece of, or this relic, which he will place on his player board, and this relic brings him 5 victory points by the end of the game, but really only the first one in the color. So if he would be able to manage a second green toad, for example, then he doesn't get 10 victory points, for example. This really has to be clear. You always get one bonus per color. Additionally, you are now allowed to sum up your pathways that you went through when doing the relic expedition. This case this were 1 and 2, and this will be doubled, and this is the amount of victory points you are allowed to grab. So in this case, this would mean 4 additional victory points for the green player, which you will hide from the other players. As soon as any player collects the 8th relic in total for over all the players, this would mean this triggers the last round of the game. Any other player would still have one last turn except the one who grabbed this last relic, and once they are done, this means the game is over. So everyone would sum up his victory points, so 5 points for this toad, for example, 3 points here, an additional 2 points, so that's 10 points. Maybe he was able to grab one of these blue temple tiles, additional 2 victory points. So this means in this case green would end the game with 12 victory points. And I already mentioned it, the explorer with the most victory point can call himself Indiana Jones or Quatermain or whatever he prefers. And this brings me to the end of my review of Relic Runners. Really an awesome game. I absolutely enjoyed the quality of the components are awesome. After all, it's still a Days of Wonder production, so this is definitely a hot recommendation from my side to you. I hope you enjoyed it, hope to see you soon in one of my next videos, and until then, bye bye.